About this and some other things. Florida Congressman Byron Donalds, New York House member Claudia Tenney. Thanks to both of you. Claudia, I'm not the lawyer, you're the lawyer, okay? But I don't know, we've talked about this before. 287G, also, what is it, 212F is another one. These are federal statutes. They're sections of the Immigration and Naturalization Act, or now the Nationalization Act, that expressly give federal authority to remove these criminals, incarcerated or not. Furthermore, federal law supersedes local law. And so these liberal whiners, I don't care, let them whine. They'll just keep on losing elections, Claudia. What the heck? But am I wrong here? I mean, there are probably other statutes you can cite.
Well, you're absolutely right on the law, but New York State passed this thing called the Green Light Law in 2019 under Governor Cuomo, which actually prohibits sharing between local law enforcement and federal law enforcement to determine if they're illegal immigrants. Not only that, it also gives them the access to a driver's license. But I will tell you, there is one county in the state of New York out of 62, Rensselaer County, and my good friend is the county executive, who refused to enforce the law based on what Cuomo and the New York Democrats wanted. And he's a standout. But guess what? Letitia James, our Attorney General, has threatened to go after and pursue and sue any of these counties that actually try to interfere with the law that was passed to protect illegal immigrants and prevent ICE from intervening, which would have saved Laken Riley, by the way. Had Laken Riley, had her murderer been detained and allowed to be detained by the New York Police Department, he never would have been shipped at taxpayers' expense, as you accurately point out, to Georgia, where he was able to murder Laken Riley. It is New York State law, Governor Cuomo, the left wing that runs New York State Assembly and Senate, and the Governor Hochul, who continue to allow this to happen under threat from the lawless, malicious prosecution of Letitia James, who I think should be disbarred and removed from office for a number of things, not to, the least of which is what she's done to President Trump.
Well, Byron, you know, politically, it's interesting. All these sanctuary city people, you know, the mayors of San Francisco lost in the last election. The mayor of Oakland, California, lost in the last election. We did pretty well. Trump did pretty well in our home state of New York, for example. I don't know, the politics here, it sounds futile to me. Go ahead, let them complain. The country has spoken. The voters have spoken. And they didn't speak by just a little, Byron. They spoke by a lot, okay? This really wasn't a cat's whisker. This was a landslide.
Larry, you're absolutely correct. Donald Trump has a mandate. He has the greatest presidential mandate probably since Reagan in 1984. So to have these blue state governors and these blue city mayors decide that they're going to interpret federal law how they see fit in the face of Donald Trump's overwhelming victory is egregious. But who really suffers are the good people who live in these cities and live in these states. They are American citizens. They deserve to be protected. The commander-in-chief incoming, Donald Trump, is going to secure the border, and he's going to eliminate illegal aliens from our country. He's going to expel them. He's going to make sure that they are removed from the country. That's what he's supposed to do as commander-in-chief, following the law. For them to stand in the way of it is egregious. So at this point, the question is, should they be getting federal funds? Because if they're not going to follow federal law, why are you getting federal dollars? Because federal dollars do not belong to any one state or any one city. It comes from the pockets of the American people. And if dollars are going to be going to municipalities and to states, the least they can do is follow the law and help President Trump uphold the law.
Yeah, you know, I like that. Claudia, I like that a lot. If the locals won't, and by the way, I don't know if you're sure that New York can actually, New York State can actually supersede federal law. That just didn't sound kosher to me. But you're the lawyer. I'm going to let that sit for a minute. The bigger point is what Byron mentioned. Why not? Mr. Trump, you know, he's going to be bold. He's going to do what he was elected to do. People in New York want him to stop criminals, whether they're illegal criminals or they reside in the United States. People are sick and tired of this problem, but why not? Stop the cash. Stop the cash to these states unless and until they start cooperating with the federal authorities. And one last point, Claudia. You know that the blue line, the police, and uniforms, they would love to cooperate with ICE. You know that, Claudia.
Absolutely. And Larry, it's not a question of whether or not the law supersedes. It does. It's just a matter of we have to sue in order to get it enforced with the type of judges that we have, with the prosecutors that we have, with the AG, and that's the problem. Look, President Biden, under the very statutes you just cited, he has the power right now to close the border. All Tom Homan wants to know, and as you know, he's my constituent, he lives in my district, wonderful guy, he wants to seal the border, deport illegal aliens who are criminals, and he wants to find and save the 300,000 children who have been human trafficked throughout our country. And coming across the northern border, huge problem. You know, we started the Northern Border Security Caucus because of the huge problem and the cartels taking over the northern border as well as the southern border. You know, this is what President Trump will do, and it's the reason you're starting to see everybody starting to fall in line. And let me tell you something. I've done numerous law enforcement roundtables throughout my district across the northern border. They are celebrating the day that President Trump walks into office and he can finally enforce our laws and stand up for them, because that's exactly what we need.
I know. Byron Donalds, on another subject, but not altogether. You had your FEMA hearing. The head of FEMA was there. Are you convinced now that FEMA won't discriminate against people with Trump lawn signs, which I really think is something in the face of, you know, life-threatening hurricanes and so forth? Is FEMA, and was it really up and down, FEMA? It wasn't just one person in the lower levels. It started from the top.
I'm not convinced at all, Larry. I think there's serious problems at FEMA, frankly, throughout all of the federal agencies. This is why all of the appointments that are being made by Donald Trump for cabinet posts are critical. They all must be confirmed. The United States Senate needs to do the right thing and let the president make his picks. He's the one with the mandate to get the job done. What's happening at FEMA, in my view, is pervasive. Administrator Criswell in committee yesterday could not unequivocally state that they have finished their investigation and they know that this does not go on. They're still in the middle of that process, still working with the IG. I believe personally this is very pervasive through that agency, and unfortunately it's been this way under Joe Biden, because this is what we're seeing in terms of their equity agenda that they were pushing, the DEI agenda that they've been pushing, the political use of the federal government, not just at Main Justice, but all through the federal government. This is what we've been seeing from top to bottom, and it has to stop. That's why Donald Trump needs his cabinet picks to be confirmed. I call on the Republicans in the U.S. Senate to step up and do the right thing. Listen, Larry, I'll cut to it real quick. If you could vote for Merrick Garland to be Attorney General, I mean, come on. You could vote for Matt Gaetz.
Yeah. You know, okay, so this is good. You opened up that Pandora's box, and I want to take it there. Because, listen, this is what Democrats do. This is what Merrick Garland does. This is what the Democratic liberal media does. It's called false sex smearing. Okay? In this case, they're going after Matt Gaetz. They're going after Pete Hegseth. They hate every single cabinet. But, you know, it's like a chorus. This one's terrible. Oh, wait a minute. This new one's worse. No, wait a minute. This new latest one is absolutely worse. Right? One after another. They're all worse. And it's a bunch of smearing. And that's what they do. Claudia, not even you know this, Claudia, not even the Justice Department could bring those charges against Matt Gaetz, okay? I don't know everything there is to know. I don't know. I acknowledge that. I'm just saying I do know that a former tax collector in Seminole, Florida, who's now serving out an 11-year jail term, is the guy behind the accusations. He and his two, shall we say, sex worker friends. And the Justice Department under Merrick Garland couldn't even weaponize Gaetz. All right? I don't understand this because I'm with Byron. Stop already. Let's just get these guys through and be ready to get through just as soon as January 20th rolls around or whenever the due date is.
No, I agree. Look at Matt Gaetz deserves a chance. He's a brilliant guy. He's going to go in and make sure he cleans up DOJ. You're going to see Lisa Page and Peter Strzok and those types of people that are serving. All those people are exactly what we're seeing in FEMA, only at a higher level with more power.
Yes.
Let Matt go in and clean house. Give Matt a chance. If Matt doesn't work out, President Trump will revisit that. That's the whole thing. Not everybody works out in the right job, but give them a chance. Matt could be a superstar. He could really do a great job. Let him have the chance to do that. This is what Trump does. He's a risk taker. Put the people in the positions where you think they might have a shot, and if they don't, you move on. If they do, they do a great job. I mean, that's part of being in business. You know, Larry, you got to take risks. I was a business person. You got to take risks. Byron knows what it's like to be a business person. Risk taking is what it's about. This is why people went to President Trump. This is why he got elected.
That's right.
Byron, Linda McMahon is going to be confirmed. She will make it, I'm sure. Oh, God knows if they try to smear her. But Linda McMahon is a very dear friend of mine, a very brilliant woman, a very good administrator, ran the SBA and so forth and so on, good business lady. So she's going to try to dismantle the education department. She's going to try to instill or put forward school choice, which President Trump is so keen on, and get minorities educated properly. I think they're the ones that suffer the most, but they're not the only ones that suffer. This is a good woman in pursuit of a noble cause, Byron.
Totally agree. And the thing that most people don't know, they'll probably find out in short order, she's tough.
Yes.
She's tough, she's direct, she means business. You're not going to intimidate her on Capitol Hill or in the press around the country. Great pick by President Trump there. Look, at the end of the day, the experiment that has occurred over the last, what are we talking about? Talking now, 45, 46 years with the Department of Education has been one where kids' ability in our country to read on grade level and to do math on grade level has decreased since the Federal Department of Education was opened back in 1977, 1978, around that time. So we've seen the experiment. It has not worked. It's time to turn the page, to quote somebody else who will be leaving us shortly, and do the right thing and make sure that education is for the children, number one, and that parents are at the head of the table, not waiting on the bureaucrats. Linda McMahon will get it done. Great pick.
Claudia Tenney, I've never set foot in law school. Aren't you impressed with my legal research and knowledge? Come on, Claudia.
I am very impressed, Larry. You're the best, Larry. You're amazing. And I want to tell you something while you're on education. You know who's a real leader in education? Erica Donalds, Byron's wife. She's amazing. She's been a leader on this subject for many, many years. So not only that, she's a great resource to Byron and also helping all of us out if we ever have a question. Not only does she know it, she lives it. And I think that's going to be a big part of what's going to happen in our future. A lot of great people that are part of Trump's sphere, and I think that's what I'm really excited about.
Byron, bring her on the show, for heaven's sakes. Bring her on the show. I'm all for it.
Listen, anytime. She loves you, Larry. And listen, I want to tell my wife, honey, I told Claudia to say all of that. I thank Claudia for making sure that I picked up all the brownie points in this interview.
I met your wife. I met your wife in Milwaukee, I think. I'm pretty sure I met her in Milwaukee. Yeah. Anyway, you're both fabulous. Claudia Tenney, thank you. Byron Donalds, thank you.